Welcome to RSA Conference 2024. We're here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview is sponsored by Lumu. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me today for this interview is Ricardo Villadiego.
That's right, sir.
Founder and CEO of Lumu. How are you doing, Ricardo?
I'm good, Adrian. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting show so far, and one of the themes that we hear a lot about is security operations, AI. Seems like everything related to security operations is changing. We're seeing different approaches to it, more automation. What are you seeing? What are you most excited about there?
I think, Adrian, that there are two observations that I see today, and I think they're good for the market, right? The first one is like there is a growing conviction that cybersecurity has to be operated, right? That the old path of deploying cyber defenses and trusting that those cyber defenses were gonna do the job, and you have to do nothing about that. Is no longer real. So on one side, you see the market also realizing and the practitioners realizing that the core defenses that they have, their firewalls, their EDRs, the email security tools, are going to be bypassed by adversaries, and that the only alternative viable to solve the problem is to operate proficiently those tools.
Yeah.
And I think those are two things that are very helpful to the market.
Yeah. And what are some of the key ways that we're seeing people bypassing? You mentioned adversaries are bypassing EDR, other things. That this, as new technologies come out, it's inevitable, right?
There's nothing different that the bad guys will do other than react to the defense capabilities that the market put in front of them. So when you look at the core defenses that companies deploy today, the firewalls, regardless of the brand, right? We saw last month Palo Alto, CVE, 2400, 3400
Yep.
being affecting customer. But it's the same with Fortinet, it's the same with Cisco. So bad guys bypass the firewalls by exploiting vulnerabilities on those devices. You had the EDRs also, right? Regardless of the brand. CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, Microsoft Defender. Bad guys can go and buy a kit to bypass those EDRs. Email security tools, right? Despite the fact that the investment in training users has grown a lot significantly, you send an email to a user that says, "Don't click here because you're gonna get infected," and they click twice.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the reality, right? And what happens when the bad guys bypass those elements, right? They land in the network. And if there's nothing in the network that is assessing that a threat actor has bypassed or is attempting to bypass those core defenses, then the end result is going to be catastrophic. I think that helps us to conclude that the basic cybersecurity stack that companies have today has to evolve. It has to evolve in a way that it includes network detection and response capabilities in a way that's more predominantly to the stack that companies have today. Right. That's kind of what we see, Adrian.
Right. And another problem. When you do work an incident, we see a lot of companies, you really don't know if they're out of the network, or oftentimes as a vendor, when you come in, sometimes the first thing you detect is that there's already a compromise going on, right?
That mindset of the assumption of a breach is something that we have to build core to the cybersecurity strategies. I think, like I said before, no longer trusting that the tools that you have to defend the stack is going to do the job is relevant. You have to assume that the bad guys will bypass, will circumvent the technologies that you have, and when you do so, the last resource that you have is to detect that threat actor with speed and contain that threat actor with precision. And I think that's what we do at Lumu, right? Lumu Defender helps to accelerate that threat detection and response capabilities through a concept that we created here in RSA in 2020 that we call continuous compromise assessment.
Okay. Yeah, because speed is very important.
It is absolutely right. Like, it's astonishing to me that there are some vendors that don't in 2024 don't have automated response capabilities.
Yeah.
That's no longer an option, right? If
Yeah.
you look at the vulnerabilities, right? We go back to the Palo Alto vulnerability. That thing was announced on Thursday. By Friday, there were exploits taking advantage of that vulnerability.
It was a very simple exploit, too.
It was a very simple exploit, and the patch wasn't
Almost
ready.
embarrassingly simple.
Well, even they recognized that it was poorly handled by Palo Alto, right? I think like the key on that is you have those vulnerabilities. It takes companies between 20 to 30 days to patch those vulnerabilities, and the exploit is available, day two.
Yeah.
So do the math, right?
Can't do 30, 60, 90-day patching.
It's impossible, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for compliance, that's fine. But if you want to evade, getting exploited, getting attacked, it doesn't work.
If you focus on compliance, in my view, right, you're gonna pass compliance checks, but I think compliance and cybersecurity are two different, unrelated topics. I think if you become secure, you are also compliant, but the opposite is not true. You may be compliant,
Sure,
but unsecure.
Yeah. So, we're talking about EDR getting bypassed, firewalls getting bypassed. Is there something fundamentally that we're missing here, in how we build security? Because, one of the things I've observed in a lot of organizations, you go and you look at the security team and somebody's assigned to a tool, right? Like you have the web application firewall person and the SIM person and the firewall person, and they come to work. They log into those devices. They interact with alerts, in some manner, and they log out and they go home. To me, that's not really doing security, right? That's being an operator. Like you're just managing products at that point.
And at some point, managing in a poorly disconnected siloed way, right? I think. I think we're missing the mark in that. The core element that helps to increase resilience to companies is operating the problem, being the problem, protecting the business, and those are tools that are doing its part, but they're better when they're working together, right? I think if you look at RSA last year, the theme of RSA was better together, right? And I think that helped it significantly to evolve integrations between vendors that at the end helps vendors or our companies to build the platform that they need with the tools that they need. However, a year after we come to RSA, and there is this growing trend of platformization, in which vendors are trying to build their own platform. I think, there is a red sign here that it may affect the better together story, and that companies don't necessarily want to deploy all the defenses with one vendor, particularly if it is that vendor that have helped us get into this problem the first time. I don't want to have that same vendor controlling all the aspects of my cybersecurity, right? I want to implement my multi-layer approach to cybersecurity, and I think to that point, Lumu helps significantly on being the glue that connects the different tools that you have for a better good. So platformization is good, but at the same time, we also shouldn't kid ourselves in the sense that platformization is really a story for vendors to increase their net retention, their penetration within accounts. I think the true end goal for companies is how they build the platform that they need with the specific characteristics that they need that may completely be different than the needs of another company. And that glue that helps to build that is Lumu connecting the different vendors that they have. And to do so, we had to continue to invest in the better together story, in vendors being open to accept integrations from the rest of the ecosystem. Platformization have diminished that purpose, and we already seeing vendors that are becoming more closed. That used to be open, are becoming more closed because they are favoring their platformization story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good point. With the, it makes me realize I don't even know what the theme this year is. But yeah, better together is.
That was last year. This year is the art of the possible.
The art of the possible. Okay. Yeah, and it's a really good point. Like one of the biggest innovations that I'm excited about is like the use of AI to build integrations. Like and it's not just AI, but I've seen a lot of companies automating. Like I know of several companies that can build an integration in a day with another vendor. Like everybody has an API today. Almost everybody's API first, and I think it's a beautiful thing where you can hook products into each other day one.
Absolutely, and with that, we brought to the market this year Lumu Autopilot, right?
Yeah.
And it's the evolution of the journey that we have built, right? And you're right. Most vendors have APIs. Not all vendors have APIs. You will be surprised. There are large vendors that don't have APIs that are just rebranding their legacy technologies to stay relevant with a marketing message. But some vendors don't have APIs. The vendors that have API, and I do believe that a vendor in 2024 that don't have API is a vendor that shouldn't be seriously considered by companies. But that's a different story. When the fact is that this API helps with automation, and when you combine automation with AI, you get this fascinating story that we brought to the market today, which is Lumu Autopilot, right? This growing conviction that companies have to operate cybersecurity, it's becoming pervasive in the market. So large companies have done that from years and years, but attackers are becoming more effective at increasing the volume of those attacks. And to increase the volume of those attacks, you have to go down market. If you're thinking from the adversary perspective, right? So they're now attacking small businesses, mid and medium enterprises. Companies that don't necessarily have the ability to deploy 24/7 security operation strategies and people and so on and so forth. Lumu Autopilot helps to automate using AI distilled playbooks of defense, the detections and the incidents that we identify in those networks, in which we create a digital twin, a virtualized capability of your team that is working 24/7, that doesn't have to take bathroom breaks, that don't get drunk after the last game of football or soccer or whatever is the sport that you care, and it is adding value continuously, minimizing the need to hiring 24/7 talent and making 24/7 security operation capabilities available for companies of all sizes and all verticals.
So is this train off of what your analysts do? Like how is that automation realized?
So we get the way the technology works is that for about 5 years we have collected extensive network metadata from the customers that we are monitoring, and we're all working on the same platform, on the Lumu platform, and we were able to see what the analysts were doing to mitigate the attacks that we were able to identify, and that learning helped us to distill those playbooks of defense. And AI is very fascinating in doing so by virtualizing those capabilities. Now those virtualized defense capabilities effectively create the digital twins that replicates what the human analyst will do. So when Lumu Autopilot identifies an attack, it will do what a human will do. It will review the context of the incident. It will review the endpoints, how the endpoints are behaving. It will review the history of contacts of that endpoint, and it will conclude if that is an occasional contact that is safe to close because it doesn't pose any risk for the company, or it's an incident that merits additional monitoring, right? And then it will continue to monitor that incident to see the evolution until it concludes if that is an incident that requires to be escalated to a human to take an action.
Right, it can do that.
Or no, right?
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Ricardo. This was great.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
All right. To learn more about Lumu, you can visit securityweekly.com/Lumu RSAC. And stick around. We've got more interviews coming soon.